Picture this: a colossal stone giant towering over Rome, bathed in golden sunlight as the roars of 50,000 spectators shake the ground beneath your feet. This is the Roman Colosseum in its prime, where emperors commanded the impossible and blood stained the sand for centuries. But beneath its grand arches lies secrets darker than any gladiator's shadow. What if the arena's wooden floor could vanish in an instant, unleashing lions from hidden trapdoors? Or that this monument of death was built by enslaved prisoners as a twisted trophy of war? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on history's most infamous stage, revealing 25 jaw-dropping truths about the Colosseum that sound more like Hollywood fiction than ancient reality. From naval battles fought in a flooded arena to the emperor's secret tunnel for sneaking into games disguised as a gladiator, every stone here has a story that will rewrite what you thought you knew about Rome's greatest spectacle. Strap in, because this isn't your school teacher's history lesson. By the time we're done, you'll see those ruins with entirely new eyes. Now let's peel back the very first layer of this ancient wonder's identity. What we call the Colosseum today wasn't always its name. When Emperor Vespasian first commissioned it, this iconic amphitheater was known as the Flavian Amphitheater, named after his ruling dynasty, the Flavians. But here's where it gets fascinating: the construction wasn't just about entertainment. It was a calculated political move. Vespasian built it on the site of Nero's demolished palace, a deliberate act to erase the memory of the hated emperor and rebrand Rome's landscape for his own legacy. The name Colosseum actually came later, borrowed from a monstrously tall bronze statue of Nero that once stood nearby. The statue, nicknamed the Colossus of Nero, was so massive that even after Nero's downfall, it cast a literal and metaphorical shadow over the area. Over time, people began calling the amphitheater by its neighbor's nickname, and the rest is history. So every time we say Colosseum, we're inadvertently nodding to Nero's ghost, a twist of irony Vespasian would never have seen coming. But the story of the Colosseum's construction takes a darker turn when we look at who actually built it. The grandeur we see today came at a devastating human cost. After the siege of Jerusalem in the year 70, tens of thousands of Jewish prisoners were brought to Rome in chains. These men weren't just captives, they were forced into backbreaking labor under brutal conditions, hauling massive stones and mortar to construct Vespasian's great amphitheater. The work was punishing, often deadly, with sweltering heat, minimal food, and relentless oversight ensuring no one could slow down. But this wasn't just about labor. It was a deliberate act of humiliation and propaganda. By using Jewish slaves, Vespasian showcased Rome's total dominance over a conquered people, turning their suffering into a public spectacle before the games even began. Every stone laid was a reminder of Rome's power and the fate of those who dared resist it. The Colosseum, a symbol of entertainment, was built on the sweat and blood of thousands who had no choice but to obey. This layer of history adds a sobering weight to its towering walls. But the Colosseum's foundations hold an even deeper irony, one that reshaped Rome's landscape both literally and politically. Before this iconic arena stood here, the land was nothing but water. Emperor Nero, infamous for his extravagance, had created a massive artificial lake as part of his sprawling golden palace complex. It was a private playground for his indulgent whims, a glaring symbol of his excess while Rome suffered. But when Vespasian came to power, he saw an opportunity to rewrite history. Draining Nero's lake wasn't just an engineering feat, it was a calculated political statement. Teams of workers redirected entire waterways, transforming what was once a symbol of imperial greed into the very bedrock of Rome's greatest public venue. The engineering alone was staggering, requiring precise planning to keep the unstable, marshy ground from collapsing under the Colosseum's weight. But more than that, it sent a clear message: Vespasian's Rome would erase Nero's legacy, replacing selfish luxury with grand spectacles for the people. The lake's disappearance wasn't just about reclaiming land. It was about burying the past and building a new chapter where even the soil beneath the Colosseum whispered of Rome's rebirth. But beneath the Colosseum's grand arena lay a hidden world just as fascinating as the battles above. This underground maze, known as the Hypogeum, was the beating heart of the spectacle, a labyrinth of tunnels, cages, and machinery designed to shock and awe the crowds. Picture this: gladiators awaiting their fate, exotic animals pacing in darkness, and teams of stagehands working frantically to execute the emperor's wildest visions. The Hypogeum was a masterpiece of ancient engineering, with 80 trapdoors and a system of pulleys and elevators that could launch beasts or warriors into the arena in seconds. Imagine the gasps as a lion suddenly erupted from the floor, as if by magic. But none of this was left to chance. Slaves operated the machinery in precise sync, while hidden passageways allowed performers to vanish just as quickly as they appeared. The Hypogeum's secrecy was key. Spectators were meant to see only the drama, never the gritty mechanics behind it. This was theater on an epic scale, where every surprise was meticulously staged to keep 50,000 Romans on the edge of their seats. And though the Hypogeum lies in ruins today, its ingenious design still echoes the Colosseum's greatest truth. What made this arena unforgettable wasn't just what happened in the light, but all the darkness it hid. Shifting our gaze from the underground wonders of the Hypogeum, let's step into one of the Colosseum's most jaw-dropping spectacles, the naval battles, or naumatia. Picture this: the arena floor, usually covered in sand and blood, transforming into a shallow lake within hours, complete with real ships and combatants reenacting famous sea battles. It's almost hard to believe, but ancient engineers pulled off this staggering feat by tapping into Rome's intricate aqueduct system, flooding the arena through a network of hidden pipes. The sight of ships clashing amid artificial waves with rowers and soldiers locked in combat must have left audiences utterly spellbound. Now, let's clear up a common misconception. These aquatic spectacles weren't as frequent as Hollywood might have you think. Historians believe full-scale naval battles were rare, possibly reserved for grand opening ceremonies or special imperial celebrations. The logistics were enormous. Draining the water afterward was just as critical as flooding it in, and the Colosseum's engineers mastered both with shocking speed. Some estimates suggest the entire process, filling and emptying, could be done in a single day, a testament to Roman ingenuity. What's even more impressive, the Colosseum wasn't the first arena to host these mock sea battles, but it was the most advanced. Earlier versions required digging temporary basins, but the Colosseum's Hypogeum had built-in drainage, allowing it to switch seamlessly from gladiator fights to naval warfare and back again. This versatility cemented its reputation as the ultimate ancient entertainment venue, a place where land and sea alike bowed to the spectacle. And while the naumatia may have been fleeting, their legacy endures as one of history's most audacious engineering triumphs. Moving from the watery spectacles of naval battles, let's uncover another marvel of Roman engineering: the animal elevators. Hidden beneath the Colosseum's floor, a network of sophisticated pulley systems worked like clockwork to launch exotic beasts into the arena, ensuring the crowd's gasps of awe and terror. Picture this: lions, bears, even elephants rising suddenly from trapdoors on wooden platforms, as if emerging from the depths of the earth. These lifts weren't just functional, they were theatrical, designed to amplify the drama of the hunt or gladiator combat. But even the Romans couldn't tame every variable. Historical accounts hint at chaotic malfunctions, like animals breaking free mid-ascent or platforms jamming, leaving predators stranded beneath the sand. One infamous story tells of a bear refusing to cooperate, escaping into the labyrinth of tunnels beneath the stands, sending spectators scrambling. It's a stark reminder that for all their ingenuity, the Romans were still at the mercy of nature's unpredictability. What's truly mind-blowing: the scale of these operations. Archaeologists estimate the Hypogeum housed around 60 elevators, each capable of lifting hundreds of pounds in seconds. The system relied on counterweights and capstans, technology so advanced it wouldn't be matched until the Industrial Revolution. And here's the kicker: the Colosseum's animal lifts weren't just about spectacle, they were psychological warfare. Imagine the terror of a gladiator facing a lion that appeared out of nowhere, as if summoned by the gods themselves. This wasn't just engineering, it was storytelling, with every creak of the pulleys adding to the Colosseum's legend. Now let's step out of the shadowy depths of the Hypogeum and look upward to one of the Colosseum's most ingenious features, the velarium. Picture this: a massive retractable awning stretching over the entire seating area, shielding up to 50,000 spectators from Rome's relentless sun. What's even more fascinating, this colossal shade wasn't operated by slaves or engineers, but by sailors from the Roman Navy. These men, experts in handling sails and rigging, were the perfect crew to manage the velarium's intricate rope and pulley system. The scale of this operation was staggering. Historians believe it took a small army of sailors, possibly thousands, to maneuver the awning into place. Imagine the coordination required to unfurl this giant canvas canopy without tangles or mishaps. It's a level of precision that rivals modern stadium roofs, like those at Wimbledon or the retractable domes of today's sports arenas. Yet, the Romans pulled this off nearly 2,000 years ago with no hydraulics or electric motors, just muscle, teamwork, and ingenuity. But here's the real kicker: the velarium wasn't just functional, it was part of the spectacle. As the awning billowed in the wind, it cast shifting patterns of shade, adding drama to the events below. Some scholars even suggest the sails were dyed in imperial colors, turning the entire arena into a shimmering display of Roman power. So next time you complain about stadium seats being too sunny, remember, the Romans had it figured out centuries ago and they made it look easy. Shifting our focus from the grand engineering of the velarium, let's talk about who actually got to enjoy those shaded seats. Believe it or not, entry to the Colosseum was completely free. But that didn't mean just anyone could stroll in and grab the best view. The Romans had a system, and it was all about status. Your ticket, a simple piece of stone or pottery etched with a seat number. No flashy paper or digital QR codes here, just a humble shard that dictated exactly where you'd sit based on your place in society. At the top, literally and figuratively, were the senators and elite. They got the prime spots closest to the action, often in the first rows with unobstructed views of the blood and spectacle below. Moving upward, the seating reflected the rigid class divisions: knights and wealthy citizens next, followed by ordinary Roman citizens. Even freed slaves had designated sections, though far less glamorous. And at the very top, the poorest plebeians, women and slaves, crammed into the highest tiers where the games were little more than distant antics. But here's the twist: this wasn't just about comfort or visibility. The seating chart was a mirror of Roman politics. By assigning seats so precisely, the emperors reinforced social order, reminding everyone of their rank while keeping the masses entertained and distracted. Free bread, free games, and a rigid hierarchy, all part of the Colosseum's unspoken rulebook. So while the gladiators fought below, the real power play was happening in the stands. Now that's what you call a captive audience. Just beyond the roaring crowds and blood-soaked sands of the Colosseum, hidden in plain sight, was the engine that powered the spectacle, the Ludus Magnus, the most famous gladiator school in Rome. A brutal training ground connected directly to the arena by an underground tunnel. This was where warriors were forged, not born. Imagine a cross between a military boot camp and a celebrity athlete's training facility, complete with fan adoration, sponsorships, and the ever-present shadow of death. Gladiators trained here with the discipline of soldiers, enduring relentless drills with wooden swords and weighted shields to build strength and precision. Their lives followed a strict regimen: dawn workouts, combat practice under the watchful eyes of seasoned fighters, and medical care to keep them in peak condition though injuries were common. Surprisingly, their diet was anything but meager. Historical accounts reveal they ate a high-protein mix of barley, beans, and even ash believed to strengthen bones. But here's the paradox: these men were both idols and property. Crowds cheered their names, children imitated their moves, and wealthy patrons paid fortunes to hire them for private events. Yet they remained enslaved, their fates tied to the whims of their owners and the crowd's thumbs. Successful gladiators could earn freedom, but most knew the arena's sand would one day claim them. The Ludus Magnus wasn't just a school, it was a microcosm of Rome itself, where glory and brutality walked hand in hand. And every time a gladiator stepped into that tunnel, they knew it might be their last walk as a living legend. Talk about pressure under the spotlight. Now let's step into the darker side of the Colosseum's spectacles, where justice and cruelty collided in the most theatrical ways imaginable. Executions weren't just about punishment here. They were elaborate performances designed to shock, awe, and reinforce the empire's power. Criminals and prisoners of war often met their ends by reenacting gruesome myths, like Prometheus chained to a rock as eagles tore at his flesh, or Hercules burning alive in a fiery cloak. These weren't just deaths, they were morality plays staged for a cheering crowd. What's chilling is how creativity amplified the brutality. Some were dressed as mythical villains, devoured by wild beasts to symbolize divine retribution. Others faced staged naval battles in the flooded arena, only to drown as the water turned red. The message was clear: Rome's enemies, real or imagined, would suffer spectacularly for all to see. But why did thousands flock to watch such horrors? Part spectacle, part warning. The crowds weren't just bloodthirsty. These executions blurred the line between entertainment and intimidation. By turning death into a public ritual, the state reminded everyone who held the power of life and annihilation. Yet it's worth asking, did the roar of the crowd drown out their own unease? Or was the Colosseum, in its grim way, a mirror reflecting Rome's deepest fears of chaos, rebellion, and the fragility of order? One thing's certain: in this arena, violence was never just violence. It was theater, politics, and control all rolled into one. But the Colosseum's spectacles weren't just about human drama. Nature itself was commandeered for Rome's entertainment. Picture this: rhinos charging across the sand, giraffes towering over confused gladiators, even hippos hauled from the Nile to fight in an artificial lake. The Roman Empire's reach stretched so far that no creature was safe from becoming a prop in these deadly games. Thousands of animals were imported from every corner of the known world: lions from North Africa, tigers from Persia, elephants from India. The logistics alone boggle the mind. Imagine the ships crammed with roaring cages, the handlers risking their lives just to deliver these beasts to Rome's doorstep. Some species, like the North African elephant, were hunted so relentlessly for the arena that they vanished entirely from their native lands. And then there's the sheer waste. During Emperor Titus's 100-day opening games, 9,000 animals were slaughtered in a single extravaganza. Leopards, crocodiles, ostriches, all killed not for food or survival, but for a fleeting moment of shock and awe. The Colosseum didn't just change history, it altered ecosystems. Entire species dwindled because Rome demanded the exotic and the extreme. What's ironic? Many Romans had never seen these animals before. To them, a giraffe was as mythical as a dragon until it bled out on the sand. The games turned nature's marvels into disposable spectacle, proving that in the Colosseum, even the wildest corners of the earth weren't beyond Rome's appetite for domination. But here's a twist you might not expect now. Let's step back to that infamous opening festival, where Rome unveiled its grandest stage with a spectacle unlike anything the world had seen. When Emperor Titus inaugurated the Colosseum in the year 80, he didn't hold back. This was a 100-day marathon of bloodshed and wonder. The scale was staggering. Eyewitnesses wrote of 9,000 animals butchered in the arena, from roaring lions to panicked bears, their deaths choreographed for maximum drama. One account describes a single day where hundreds of exotic beasts were released at once, creating a chaotic jungle in the heart of Rome. But the cruelty wasn't random, it was calculated theater. Titus understood the power of spectacle. He staged hunts where gladiators dressed as mythical heroes faced off against leopards or bulls, blurring the line between legend and reality. The crowd gasped as elephants knelt on command, only to be slaughtered moments later. The poet Martial, who witnessed it firsthand, called it a world of terror condensed into one place. And the people, they couldn't look away. Romans from every social class packed the stands, some horrified, others cheering. For many, this was their first glimpse of creatures like hippos or rhinos, animals that seemed like monsters from distant lands. The festival wasn't just entertainment, it was a demonstration of imperial power. Every drop of blood spilled reminded the world Rome could conquer nature itself. What's chilling is how normal it became. By the festival's end, the crowd had grown numb to the violence. A giraffe's execution might draw applause one day, then bored yawns the next. The Colosseum's debut set a dark precedent, one where life, human or animal, was reduced to disposable spectacle. And yet, beneath the horror, there's a haunting question. How much of that hunger for extremes still echoes in our own arenas today? But the Colosseum had secrets even bloodier than its sands. Now, let's peel back another layer of the Colosseum's shadowy past, one wrapped in faith, folklore, and fierce debate. For centuries, a gripping legend has clung to these ancient stones, that the arena was a slaughterhouse for early Christians, devoured by lions to the roar of bloodthirsty crowds. This image, popularized by paintings and Hollywood, paints the Colosseum as a sacred ground of martyrdom, but history, as it often does, tells a messier story. The truth, there's not a single piece of direct evidence, no eyewitness accounts, no contemporary records tying Christian executions to the Colosseum. The confusion likely stems from later centuries when Christians, persecuted elsewhere in Rome, began seeing the ruins as a powerful symbol of their suffering. By the Middle Ages, the Church had embraced the Colosseum as a shrine, even installing crosses to honor imagined martyrs, yet the myth persists, and for good reason. Persecution of Christians did happen, just not here. Emperor Nero notoriously used them as scapegoats after the Great Fire of Rome in the year 64, but those atrocities occurred in his private circus, not the Colosseum, which wasn't even built yet. So why the mix-up? Blame the power of symbolism. The Colosseum, as Rome's most iconic stage for violence, became a canvas for later generations to project their own narratives of sacrifice and redemption. Here's the twist: the very lack of evidence speaks volumes. The absence of Christian martyrdoms in the Colosseum's records hints at something darker. That Rome's cruelty was so routine, so widespread, it didn't always merit special mention. Whether victims were Christian, criminal, or captive, their deaths were just another day's entertainment. But the Colosseum's underground holds even eerier secrets, shifting our focus to the forces of nature. The Colosseum faced one of its greatest enemies, not from human hands, but from the earth itself. In the year 1349, a devastating earthquake ripped through Rome, leaving the southern side of the amphitheater in ruins. This wasn't just a crack in the facade. Entire sections of the outer wall came crashing down, exposing the skeleton of the once mighty arena to the elements. But here's where destruction birthed something unexpected. Romans, ever resourceful, saw opportunity in the rubble. The fallen limestone and travertine blocks weren't left to gather dust, they were hauled off to build new monuments across the city. Churches like St. Peter's Basilica, palaces for wealthy families, even bridges over the Tiber River, all absorbed pieces of the Colosseum's broken grandeur. This scavenging wasn't vandalism, it was recycling on an epic scale, turning tragedy into rebirth. The earthquake's aftermath did more than reshape the Colosseum, it helped shape Rome's future. As Renaissance architects sought inspiration from classical ruins, they incorporated salvaged materials into new designs, blending ancient and modern. The very stones that once echoed with the cheers of gladiatorial combat now supported soaring cathedrals and elegant piazzas. Ironically, this quarrying of the Colosseum preserved fragments of its legacy in buildings that still stand today, weaving the amphitheater's physical remains into the fabric of a changing city. Yet this scavenging came at a cost. By the 18th century, so much material had been stripped that Pope Benedict V finally declared the Colosseum a sacred site to halt the plundering, but not before its scars became part of Rome's architectural DNA. And speaking of hidden transformations, wait until you hear what the Colosseum became during the Middle Ages, but time had more surprises in store for this ancient monument. Fast forward to the 12th century, and the Colosseum underwent one of its most dramatic transformations. It became a fortress. That's right, the same arena where gladiators once fought for glory was now a military stronghold under the powerful Frangipani family. These nobles saw the Colosseum not as a crumbling relic but as a strategic asset, turning its towering ruins into a fortified castle right in the heart of Rome. Imagine walking through the city during this era. Instead of an abandoned amphitheater, you'd see wooden battlements added to the upper levels, arrow slits carved into stone, and gates reinforced to keep enemies out. The Frangipani didn't just occupy the Colosseum. They transformed it into a symbol of their power, using its massive walls as a shield against rival families and invaders. But it wasn't just about defense. Within those ancient passageways, an entire community thrived. The lower levels, once echoing with the roars of beasts and crowds, were repurposed into housing, workshops, and even stables. Romans had always been masters of reinvention, and here they turned a monument to entertainment into a bustling medieval village. This chapter of the Colosseum's life didn't last forever, but it left its mark. The Frangipani's modifications, like the fortified towers they built, still hint at this audacious reinterpretation of the past. It's a reminder that history isn't just about preservation sometimes, it's about adaptation, turning something old into something urgently new. And speaking of reinvention, wait until you hear how nature itself reclaimed the Colosseum centuries later. But nature had its own plans for the Colosseum, weaving an unexpected story into its ancient stones. By the 1800s, something extraordinary had happened. This symbol of Roman might had transformed into an accidental garden. Scientists catalogued a staggering 684 plant species thriving among the ruins, turning the arena into a living laboratory of biodiversity. Here's the twist: many of these plants weren't native to Rome. Seeds hitchhiked across continents, carried by the fur of exotic animals once forced to fight here. Lions from Africa, bears from Europe, even giraffes from the Middle East, their fur and droppings smuggled seeds that took root centuries later. Other plants arrived through trade routes, their spores drifting on the wind or clinging to merchants' goods. Over time, the Colosseum became a patchwork of global flora, with Mediterranean ivy tangling alongside rare Middle Eastern wildflowers. Botanists of the era were fascinated. The Colosseum's microclimate, damp in its shaded tunnels, sun-baked on its upper tiers, created pockets where plants from vastly different environments could coexist. This accidental garden became a cornerstone of early ecological studies, helping scientists understand how species adapt to new environments. Some even credit these ruins with sparking debates about invasive species long before the term existed. So next time you picture the Colosseum, don't just imagine gladiators and emperors. Think of it as a silent pioneer in the study of nature's resilience. And speaking of hidden legacies, wait until you hear how Hollywood rewrote this monument's history next. Now, let's set the record straight on one of Hollywood's biggest historical mix-ups. If you've ever watched the epic film Ben-Hur, you might vividly remember the heart-pounding chariot race inside the Colosseum. But here's the truth: that never happened. Chariot races were actually held at Rome's Circus Maximus, a massive stadium dedicated solely to these high-speed, high-stakes events. The Colosseum, designed for gladiator battles and wild animal hunts, simply wasn't built for chariots. Its oval shape and underground hypogeum made it perfect for close-up combat, but racing required the long, straight stretches of the Circus Maximus, which could hold over 150,000 spectators, nearly 3 times the Colosseum's capacity. So why the mix-up? Blame Hollywood's love for dramatic shortcuts. Filmmakers merged 2 iconic symbols of ancient Rome into one for cinematic flair, leaving audiences with a stubborn myth. Even today, many assume the Colosseum hosted races, thanks to scenes like Ben-Hur's legendary showdown. But next time you see those chariots thundering across the screen, remember, the real action happened half a mile away, where the Circus Maximus once roared with the cheers of ancient racing fans. And speaking of hidden tunnels, wait until you hear about the Emperor's secret passageway, a VIP shortcut that kept Rome's rulers out of the public eye. Now, let's uncover a passage so exclusive even Rome's elite didn't know it existed. Hidden beneath the chaos of the arena was the Emperor's secret tunnel, a private corridor connecting the Colosseum directly to the Palatine Hill, the heart of imperial power. Imagine this: while crowds flooded through the main gates, emperors like Commodus slipped in unseen, bypassing the masses through this VIP shortcut. Why the secrecy? For one, safety. Emperors were constant targets, and this tunnel shielded them from assassins. But it also fueled rumors, especially about Commodus, who reportedly obsessed over gladiator fights. Some historians suggest he used the tunnel to sneak into the arena disguised as a gladiator, battling opponents or slaughtering animals for thrills. True or not, the idea fits his infamous reputation for blurring the line between ruler and performer. The tunnel itself was a marvel, a dimly lit, brick-lined path wide enough for a small entourage. Its existence was kept quiet, reinforcing the emperor's image as almost divine, appearing suddenly before the crowd like a god descending to the games. And when the spectacle ended, he'd vanish just as quickly, leaving spectators wondering how he'd come and gone without a trace. But the Colosseum's underground secrets don't end there. Up next, we'll step onto its blood-stained floor, a grisly surface where sand hid more than just footprints now. Let's step onto the Colosseum's most chilling feature, its blood-soaked floor. Beneath the roar of the crowd and the clash of combat, the arena's surface was a grim masterpiece of practicality. The wooden floor, hidden under layers of sand, served a gruesome purpose, absorbing the relentless spills of blood from battles above. This sand, called harina in Latin, wasn't just functional, it gave all future arenas their name. But the sand did more than mop up gore. It masked the horror below. The Hypogeum's maze of cages, pulleys, and trapdoors, while also providing traction for fighters and animals. After each event, crews would rake the sand, removing debris and blood before sprinkling fresh layers to cover the stains. Some accounts even suggest perfumes or herbs were scattered to mask the stench of death, a fleeting attempt to sanitize the spectacle. The cleanup rituals were as systematic as they were macabre. Corpses of gladiators and animals were hauled through trapdoors to underground passages, while drains beneath the floor funneled blood and waste into Rome's sewers. This cycle of violence and sanitation turned the Colosseum into a well-oiled machine of entertainment and efficiency, where even death was tidily managed. And just when you think the Colosseum's secrets couldn't get darker, wait until you hear about the messages left behind by those who survived its horrors. Up next, we'll decode the chilling graffiti carved by gladiators and spectators alike. While the Colosseum's blood-stained sand told one story, its walls whispered another, etched with the voices of those who lived through its chaos. Scratched into the stone, you'll find ancient graffiti, crude drawings of gladiators mid-battle, their weapons raised, their victories or defeats frozen in time. These weren't just idle doodles, they were records of real people, some carved by the fighters themselves, others by fans cheering from the stands. Take this one, for example. A gladiator named Marcus stands over a fallen opponent, his spear poised. Next to it, a tally of 5 lines, likely his win count. For gladiators, these carvings were resumes in stone, proof of their skill to potential sponsors or lovers. But not all graffiti was celebratory. Some sketches show fighters with hands raised, begging for mercy, while others depict the infamous thumbs down gesture, a grim reminder of the crowd's power over life and death. Then there are the tributes. Names like Celadus, a gladiator hailed as the heartthrob of the girls, appear alongside hearts and admirers' initials. These weren't just autographs, they were proof that gladiators, though slaves, were rock stars of their time. Even emperors got in on the action. One wall bears a crude carving of Commodus, who fancied himself a gladiator, though his battles were likely staged. What makes these carvings so haunting is their intimacy. They're not official records or propaganda, just raw, unfiltered moments from people caught in the Colosseum's whirlwind of violence and fame. And as we peel back another layer of this ancient puzzle, we uncover an even more hidden world beneath our feet, the Colosseum's secret trapdoors where surprise and spectacle collided. Now, let's step into the Colosseum's shadowy underbelly, where engineering met spectacle in the most jaw-dropping way. Hidden beneath that blood-stained sand were more than 80 trapdoors, a network of mechanical surprises designed to send shockwaves through the crowd. Imagine the gasps as a lion suddenly burst from the floor, or a bear emerged where empty sand had been just seconds before. These weren't just random holes, they were carefully timed theatrical flourishes, the ancient equivalent of a blockbuster movie's jump scare. The genius of these trapdoors lay in their simplicity. Wooden platforms rigged with ropes and pulleys could be yanked open in an instant. Some led straight to the Hypogeum's cages, while others were decoys to keep the audience guessing. The element of surprise was everything. Fighters might dodge one beast only to spin around and find another snapping at their heels. It was chaos by design, a way to keep every seat on the edge. And here's the wild part. This wasn't so different from modern special effects. Think of the trapdoors as the Roman version of CGI minus the computers. Where today's filmmakers used digital magic to make dragons soar, the Colosseum's engineers used sheer manpower to make tigers appear out of thin air. Both thrive on the same thing, that heart-pounding moment when the impossible becomes real, but the real masterstroke, misdirection. While the crowd's eyes were glued to a gladiator's duel, stagehands below would quietly prepare the next shock. By the time the trapdoor sprang open, the roar of the audience was as much a part of the show as the animals themselves. It was a reminder that in the Colosseum, even the ground beneath your feet could turn against you, a lesson in suspense that Hollywood still borrows from today. But let's fast forward through the centuries when the Colosseum's story took a surprising turn, from a crumbling ruin to a sacred symbol. In the 1700s, Pope Benedict XIV made a landmark decision that would change its fate forever. He declared the Colosseum a holy site consecrated to the memory of Christian martyrs. Now, this wasn't just a religious gesture, it was a game-changer for preservation. For centuries, the Colosseum had been treated as a glorified stone quarry. Its massive blocks were hauled away to build churches, palaces, even bridges across Rome. But Pope Benedict's decree put an end to that. Suddenly, the Colosseum wasn't just ancient rubble, it was hallowed ground, a place where faith and history intertwined. This marked one of the earliest efforts to protect the monument, shifting its identity from a source of building materials to a site worth safeguarding. What's fascinating is how this moment planted the seeds for modern conservation. Before the idea of preserving ruins for their historical value even existed, the Pope's declaration gave the Colosseum a new purpose. It became a pilgrimage site, drawing visitors who came not for bloodshed but for reflection. The very arena that once symbolized Rome's brutality was now reborn as a monument to endurance and spirituality. And here's the twist: while the stories of Christian martyrs executed here were more legend than verified fact, the symbolism stuck. The Colosseum's transformation shows how history isn't just about what happened, but what we choose to remember. From gladiators to saints, its legacy evolved, proving that even the most violent chapters can be rewritten with time. Now picture this, the same stones that once echoed with the roars of bloodthirsty crowds now resonating with music under the moonlight. By the 19th century, the Colosseum had become a hauntingly beautiful stage for romantic artists and poets. Imagine violins and operatic voices filling the air, surrounded by crumbling arches bathed in silver light. These moonlit concerts weren't just performances, they were a reimagining of the Colosseum's soul. Romanticists like Lord Byron and Charles Dickens were spellbound by these events. Byron even called the Colosseum a noble wreck in lonely grandeur, while Dickens described its ruins as the ghost of old Rome. For them, the arena wasn't just a relic, it was a canvas for emotion, a place where art and decay intertwined. The contrast couldn't be starker, a site built for violence now celebrated for its poetic melancholy. What's striking is how these concerts flipped the script. Where gladiators once fought for survival, musicians now stirred hearts with harmonies. The Colosseum's past wasn't ignored, it was repurposed. The ruins became a symbol of beauty rising from brutality, a theme that captivated the Romantic era. This shift shows how history's darkest corners can inspire the brightest creativity. And here's the twist, these concerts weren't just about entertainment. They were acts of defiance against time itself, a way to reclaim the Colosseum from oblivion. By blending music with moonlight, artists gave the arena a new voice, one that still whispers to us today. From blood-stained sand to candlelit sonatas, the Colosseum proves that even the most violent places can find redemption through art. But beneath the layers of moonlight concerts and poetic musings lies another world entirely, one far darker and less explored. Hidden below the already mysterious Hypogeum, a network of tunnels stretches into the shadows, untouched by the Romantic era's artistic revival. These catacombs, buried deeper than the gladiators' staging areas, may have served as secret storage rooms or emergency escape routes, a last resort for fighters trapped in the chaos above. While most visitors focus on the arena's grand arches, archaeologists have uncovered hints of these forgotten passageways, narrow, rough-hewn corridors that twist unpredictably. Some believe they held supplies for the games, from spare weapons to cages for reserve animals. Others speculate they were escape tunnels, used by officials or even emperors to flee unexpected riots or disasters. What makes these tunnels truly fascinating is how little we still know. Modern excavations continue to reveal new sections, sometimes blocked by collapses or deliberately sealed off. Each discovery peels back another layer of the Colosseum's secrets, proving that even after 2,000 years, this ancient wonder hasn't given up all its mysteries. And here's the eerie part, these catacombs might hold answers to questions we haven't even thought to ask. Were they used for something more sinister? Could they connect to other underground networks across Rome? Every shovel of dirt removed brings us closer to truths that could rewrite chapters of history. From the roar of crowds to the silence of buried tunnels, the Colosseum keeps its deepest stories locked away. For now, stepping into the present, the Colosseum's story takes a vivid turn, one painted in light. Today, this ancient arena transforms into a canvas for global awareness, illuminated in bold colors to champion modern causes. Imagine the weathered stone glowing white for international peace initiatives, or blazing red to honor persecuted Christians around the world. These striking light shows bridge 2,000 years of history, turning a monument of spectacle into a beacon of solidarity. The symbolism is powerful. Where gladiators once fought for their lives, the Colosseum now stands for unity and remembrance. Each hue carries a message: gold for childhood cancer awareness, blue for autism acceptance, even green to celebrate Italy's cultural heritage. It's a far cry from the blood-soaked sands of antiquity, yet the building's ability to captivate remains unchanged. This modern chapter highlights the Colosseum's enduring adaptability. No longer a stage for violence, it has become a voice for the voiceless, a testament to how societies repurpose their past to reflect contemporary values. The very walls that echoed with the cheers of emperors now amplify calls for justice and compassion, and perhaps that's the most extraordinary evolution of all. From imperial propaganda to sacred shrine, from romantic inspiration to global icon, the Colosseum's legacy isn't frozen in time. It's alive, shifting with each generation's hopes and struggles. As the lights dance across its arches tonight, they don't just illuminate stone, they reveal how the past can still speak to the present if we're willing to listen. Which fact stunned you most? Was it the naval battles, the animal elevators, or the way this ancient wonder still shapes our world today? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into history's greatest mysteries. The Colosseum story is far from over, and neither is ours. See you in the next adventure. Now, as we wrap up this journey through the Colosseum's astonishing past, let's revisit the moments that truly defy belief. Picture this, an arena so advanced it could flood for epic naval battles, then drain in moments. Underground elevators launching lions and bears into the fray like something from a Hollywood blockbuster. A retractable awning shading 80,000 spectators, an ancient marvel rivaling modern stadium tech. And let's not forget the Hypogeum, that shadowy labyrinth beneath the sand where gladiators and beasts awaited their fate. The Colosseum is more than just stone and spectacle. It's a paradox, a monument to both Rome's brilliance and its brutality. Here, emperors dazzled crowds with engineering feats while masking tyranny with bread and circuses. The same walls that echoed with roaring crowds later became a sacred shrine, then a medieval fortress, and now a global symbol of resilience. Every crack in its facade tells a story of reinvention. So what's your take? Did the backstage secrets of the Hypogeum leave you stunned? Or was it the sheer scale of the opening games, with thousands of animals sacrificed in a single day? Maybe it's how this ancient stage still speaks to us, lit up for justice, peace, and remembrance. Drop your favorite fact in the comments. We love hearing which pieces of history blow your mind. And if you're hungry for more mysteries from the past, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. The Colosseum's secrets are just the beginning. Wait until you see what other jaw-dropping tales from history we've got lined up. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, sometimes the most incredible stories aren't fiction, they're etched in stone.